Yeah.
But was it? By the way, everybody, we're talking about this brilliant Book of Forbidden Words, Louise's latest. Um, but does that mean that the main thrust of publicity and sales and concentration is in the States, not really in the
Yes.
UK?
Yeah. Although
Okay.
they have, I mean, to be fair, they have done a great job getting it into lots of independent bookshops and things like that. So I've just perchance gone into some bookshops and it's been in there, which has been quite surprising to me. But it's nice to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely. Hold it up again, so I'm holding it up again.
Thank you.
Um, go, Cherry. Can you see it? Everybody see it? Does it have a different cover in the US?
No, it's exactly the same. Yeah.
Same. Different edit at all? Do you have to make any kind of
No,
changes, or
it's sort of the American version, but because I've got it as well. And I've got yours too. There we go. Two of them. But because the character is English, well, actually that's not true. There are three main characters. Um,
yeah,
two of which are, well, one's English, one's
yeah,
actually from Bruges, and one is French. The
yeah.
Americanism doesn't really, it's quite the what the dialogue, everything is quite English, if that makes sense, not American English.
Yes, but I'm just going to explain to people coming on. So it's really a three-strand, isn't it? Even though on the back it says it's just got the two-strand, but it's really a three-strand timeline. Lisbeth, Charlotte, and Millie.
Yes.
So you're going between
So
1535, 16.
yeah. So it starts in sort of 1550.
Yeah, and
That's Charlotte, but then we go back in time to early 1520s, which is Lisbeth, who is brought up in Thomas More's household.
that was a
And
lovely, especially for those of us who've read Bring Up the Bodies and all the other that series. It was lovely to get another. It was like
yeah,
another go into that. It was really beautiful. I thought.
thank you. Well, yeah, is I did a lot of research into Thomas More, none of which comes into the book really, or a little bit of it does, but yeah, Hilary Mantel had quite a view of the Catholic Church, and that comes through quite strongly in her writing. And I always think with any fact, you get different perspectives and what's the truth and what isn't. And,
Yeah.
all of it maybe, or none of it. So yeah, you can take whatever angle you like, really. Um, and then the third timeline is in the 1950s in McCarthy era America, um, with an English protagonist because she goes to live with her GI husband in a suburb of New York, and the joining strand is this manuscript, which needed the
Yeah, and I liked, yeah, that nice cross-cultural British woman. Well, I don't won't give away what her background is. Does it matter anyway? But she's bright and she's a code breaker. But I like that overlap as well, that cult overlap. British woman in America decoding and all. I was thinking actually, just as I was sort of like in the last half an hour, just the parallels in content really between Fallout and this
yeah,
in terms,
I know.
right? The power of words
Yeah.
and who can tell the story and female suppression or trying to. I mean, but so just let's wind right back. When you first started thinking about it, because the timing of this is kind of brilliant. Like for it to be published now, right?
Well, it's yes, because considering I wrote this book before Trump came to power,
Right.
um, it scarily started to get more and more, yeah, relevant, I suppose is the correct word. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, how history repeats itself and how the same issues just keep arising and arising. But my original sort of bead for the book, really, because I always start with a theme, was that at the moment we're going through this crazy technological revolution, none of which we know the outcome of. The whole AI thing and all sorts of outcomes that may or may not arise. And I wanted to try and find a time in history when there was a similar um, development in technology which really changed the world. And I sort of hit upon the printing press was the thing that sort of arose. And so I started to just research around that. And, obviously coming out of the printing press, we had, the Protestant Reformation wouldn't have happened. It brought us into the modern era. Literacy started rising. All the things that now we're seeing scarily go the other way um, came from the printing press. And so it just fascinated me because I always try and find something that has some sort of resonance with today
Okay.
in writing historical fiction. And then I came across this manuscript, the Voynich
Yeah.
manuscript, which is a real manuscript, and the fact that nobody had been able to decode it. The real manuscript is actually a lot older than my fictional one. And it's in Yale University, in the Beinecker. I don't know how you pronounce it, but that library. I tried to see if I could go and see it, but I wasn't allowed because I'm not an academic. And nobody's been able to decode
According
it
to
in all these years. And
right.
there is, people think it has been written by women. It's got these crazy illustrations. I actually managed to get like a replica of it so I could really study it. Um, but the downside of using a real unencrypted manuscript was I had to invent contents and then I had to invent an encryption method, which then meant I went down this rabbit hole of
Did
research
you
into
break and explode?
encryption. And yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. So yeah, the code does work if anyone wants to try it.
Uh, that's
um,
far out. Okay.
yeah, so that was several weeks of fun. And yeah, it sort of came really from there. And the fact that it's a women's story is yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, actually, my original idea for this book was to have a modern timeline and a 1500s timeline. But my editor felt it was too disjointed, too far apart. So I wanted to try and find a historical period that would be
Okay.
relevant. So that's why I went for the 1950s in the end. But
Yeah.
it was really the fact that I mean, obviously, as I say, I wrote this before um, Trump came to power. So it was a slightly different time in which I wrote it. And my original idea was to base it around botanicals and sort of antibiotics, because at the moment, so in that period of time, people used a lot of herbs and natural things which we sort of over time, because women got persecuted for having such knowledge, we've lost a lot of that knowledge, and now they're starting to look back at those things because antibiotics are failing, and we need to find new ways to deal with pathogens. And so that was my original idea, but then it kind of
Yeah.
morphed and turned into something else, as things do when you research and start writing. And yeah, it turned into something slightly different. So
Yeah, I find that, and I can never really remember how what I find is I just find I suddenly realize I'm writing, but I can never quite remember how, like, the birth of the idea, like,
yeah,
that it always goes in my mind. But just how did you come across that manuscript? How how did you
I was just researching. I mean, my research is quite really wide ranging when I first start with an idea. I come up with a theme and then I just read really widely around it. I try and just see where my research takes me. And then I can come up with a number of possible stories or whatever. So it's quite, I mean, literally, I spent 6 months researching for this book, and the idea of the story changed so much in that time. Um, and I just stumbled across it really when I was looking at online things, I stumbled across it and I thought, wow, this is quite a novelist's gift sort of thing. But it is really well known. It's quite famous within circles of people who know about unencrypted manuscripts, um,
Okay.
which
So
is not.
were you looking specific? Was your kind of like seed theme an uncoded manuscript, or was
Well,
it about
actually,
print?
no, it was about women writing because my original so where I came from was, um, because was coming from botanical angles, I was looking
Yeah,
at writings of nuns. So I became very fascinated in the life of nuns in the sort of Middle Ages and the early modern period, which I can talk about as well because I found it absolutely fascinating. So I started with that, and then I started looking at other like non-religious writing, and I came across there's this woman, it's probably a pseudonym, but she was called Jane Anger, and she wrote the first non sort of religious feminist pamphlet in something like 1580,
you
and
say her name was Jane Anger.
Jane
Yeah.
Anger, yeah, and she wrote this pamphlet in response to a male author who'd written something. I don't know what that thing was, but she wrote this in response, and it was, I mean, obviously, I had to read a translation because I couldn't read the original. Um, but it's all about, men are just after one thing, and, they flatter you and they do this and they do, basically just to get inside your pants. I
Yeah,
mean, not using that language, but it was just like, Jesus, this could have been written yesterday.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
I know.
so, so yeah, and then because of that, I then started to look at other um early women writers, and then I came across this manuscript, so that's sort of how it worked. Yeah.
Uh, so just the botanical and the nuns, because um, I have a friend, I have a couple of friends who always come out to the south of France with me, and we've been going
Mm.
to the Mary Magdalene um crypt lately in now somebody who's watching now will remind me where it is, but anyway, it's in down in the, and yes, Ben, I put this on for you by my uh, and of course Mary Magdalene, she was, as it well, I'm going to say the real Mary Magdalene, not the virgin. She was making potions, and she was doing sacred oils and scents and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I've become fascinated myself, and it kind of feels to me like, not to get too kind of gender patriarchal. Well, I'll get very patriarchal on it. Like, yeah, that system didn't work, burnt us all, and now you want to know? Do you really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Hey, should have listened to us hundreds of years ago, but there we go. Um, yeah, what was really interesting about the life of nuns was how I had, in my head, nuns were always these sort of, elderly women who'd been shoved into nunneries against their wishes, but it really wasn't always the case. And actually, if you were an educated woman, it was a great place to be because you had a lot of power, you had, you know, um, enormous wealth, and a sort of freedom that women outside did not have. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite interesting to sort of look at it from a different angle. Um, so yeah, and I mean, I have not written in that time period before, so that was also a bit of a challenge for me, writing outside of my 20th century comfort zone. And so that meant that, I also had to research, what time they had breakfast and did they have pockets, and, all the tiny little things that matter. So it was definitely more of a challenge, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I imagine. And did you find, because obviously there are nuns play a significant role in the
Mm,
section, but did you find in the writing that you wanted to veer off? Did you have to be quite strict with yourself to stay on?
very, very much so, 'cause, when you've got 3 protagonists and you've got essentially 3 different time periods, and you've got a word limit. You know, you have to be brutal about what stays in and what goes out. Obviously, I wrote a lot more than is in the final book. I was brutal with myself, and then, of course, my editor also gets brutal with me. So, um, so yeah, it's you can only put so much in, because also it's not that,
Yeah.
it's not that interesting to readers. You know, they're not interested to know how much research, which is always a thing with historical fiction. It's very easy to get carried away with, your research, and the temptation to put a lot more in than you need. And honestly, you just really don't need that much. I mean, 95% of my research never gets into the book.
But
Um,
I get the impression, because when someone hasn't done the research, you can feel it. So even though a book might have exactly the same actual research content will finally land on the page, the author who has done the research and the author who hasn't, you can feel the difference. You can
oh, yeah,
feel if
yeah,
somehow it's better,
yeah.
and you don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 100%. I felt that with yours as well. Like, I mean, I have no idea actually how old you are, whether you remember any
I'm
of this.
55, so I was 10 in
Yeah. So,
1980.
yeah, I was also a child, and I do remember the headlines and stuff, but I just did not know all the detail that, you have in there. And yeah, and I love the fact that you've set it also in Surbiton. um
I don't know what I'm obsessed with Surbiton. I don't know why. I don't live there. I don't have any friends there. Poor old Surbiton. Just keep going back. The thing about Simon just set in Surbiton. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Leave poor Surbiton alone. I can't. Don't know
my
why.
train goes
It's
through
just
Surbiton. I do know Surbiton because I used to live in Teddington, which is near Kingston, so Surbiton's not that far away. And it's perfect. It's the perfect
not
place. I mean,
because
I don't know Surbiton in the 1980s, but I can imagine how
well,
Surbiton was.
you know what struck me that I found so shocking in the research for Fallout, because I probably did probably a year, 6 months
Yeah,
to a year,
yeah,
was just because to me that the 1980s was yesterday. But then when I started properly researching an era that I've lived through and knew,
yeah,
I made how much I'd completely forgotten and how utterly foreign in many ways the Moors of that era are to me now. Like I had not realized how far we can often feel like there's no
yeah,
progress. Go back to the 80s and really look well in Fallout what we were really dealing with. I was at an event some recently, and I said, anyone who doubts progress, just go and watch Pretty in Pink again.
yeah.
Remember the movie Pretty
Oh
in Pink?
God, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
don't
yeah,
get much because it is utterly, utterly shocking.
yeah.
And
Totally.
I had lunch with a he said he'd just watched a documentary about Blondie coming to the UK in 1981, like a Blondie tour. And there was a headline in the newspaper, and it was something like, strip away all the hair dye and the makeup, and she's just a piece of meat like everyone else.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Absolutely. And everyone's like, oh, yes,
yeah,
no, no, Jason, I bet that. 19. So it was eye opening to me,
yeah,
I found. But do you find, I mean, obviously, you wouldn't suppose you knew anything about the 16th century, but do you find when you start going in, or even to the 1950s, that you're learning and studying and opening up that you never, like a fascinating book that you never, right? Like the wealth of learning that comes with writing historical fiction is a kind of
yeah.
personal boon.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think also you have to love the research as much as you love the writing, because otherwise you would be bored out of your mind. I mean, this is 18 months of work. So when I say I did 6 months of research, that 6 months of research was before I even started to think about writing. Then, of course, when you're writing, you need to, do more and drill down and find specific things. Um, but
Mm.
and I love it because I'm learning all the time, and I think you enrich your life if you keep learning. You don't have to write to keep learning, but it's just so interesting as well to be able to, look at parallels and think, I think history should be absolutely made. um, all politicians should have to have studied history because it's so
Yeah.
important. Like we don't change. I mean, one of the things of writing further back in the past is because times are so different. Um, it's harder to maybe it's harder to sort of put yourself into the shoes of your characters. But on the other hand, human nature hasn't changed at all. So
Mm.
despite the fact that okay, the way of living is very different, um, we haven't changed. And as soon as you remember that, it makes the writing a lot easier, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually thinking about those 3 timelines, I mean, I know there are 2 main ones, but the
Mm.
3, I found Millie's timeline shocking. Maybe because it's within touching distance.
Yeah.
What was happening in the McCarthy era,
Yeah.
more shocking how women were treated in the 16th century. I don't know why. I suppose that's my ignorance that would say, and I've got less relationship with it, whereas, yeah, the 1950s just feel like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yet, realities of
Totally.
McCarthyism, which is happening
Yeah.
right now.
And I think the other thing that is so interesting about that time period is because it was after the war, and women had a lot more freedom during the war. So the fact that it was pushing them backwards afterwards, I think we saw it not to the same extent, but a little bit during lockdown,
Mm.
with COVID. Was I don't know about you, but my husband was working at home. My 3 kids were doing their school at home. I was trying to also work and manage the, the school and do the cooking and the shop. He was just doing his work and I was doing everything else. And that was not uncommon at all. And so I think it's very easy to go backwards as well as forwards. And I mean, we see that all around the world, don't we? But the other thing about the 1950s was this whole fiction of the middle class wife stays at home and looks after the kids and makes a nice home, and it was just a total fiction. It wasn't real. And one of the reasons why I picked Levittown to set the that storyline in was because Levittown was built very, very quickly after the war, and it was
Uh,
built as a kind of modern utopia. And
but
the way it was designed was, s- the husband would take the car off to go and work in the city, and the wife would be able to, every all the shops and the school and every all the facilities were within a 15-minute walk, so it was all going to be lovely, lovely. But of course, human nature is not lovely. So there is no such thing as utopia, and hence the link back to Thomas More. Um, but yeah, everything kind of links together. So yeah,
yeah, there's such a multi-layering in the novel, which I thought was really clever. But yeah, that bit in both First and Second World War, really, and then just to think
yeah,
about COVID, that kind of not only the necessary leveling, but also the kind of obvious, the unfairness, not and non-level playing field during those 3 bits. And I think, and then to have that reversion, like, no, 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 we've gone out, we've murdered everybody. Now we want you to get back into the kitchen. It's just like
yeah, yeah,
permanent nation. I
yeah,
wonder whether through COVID, if a lot of families, like the disparity, because when you've got the usual thing, if your mum's at home, kids, he's going out, mum's actually working and kids and blah, 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 but you haven't got it in front of you. With COVID, that disparity was completely unignorable because you're all in the same house. And I wonder how many households and how many women, look, mate, we're
yeah.
literally in the same fucking boat
I know.
now. Why am I cooking the dinner?
Yeah,
You know?
but I mean, and that is also what was really excellent in your novel, because even though I knew it was totally unfair, I still did it. I still did it. And that's so comes out in Fallout, is this whole, if women rebel, it's it's like men really don't know what to do about that. And but most women don't, because I think we kind of brought up from day one to be people pleasers and to be the one to smooth everything out, and you don't want to have friction, and you don't want to rock the boat and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, also, if you don't have economic if you're reliant on somebody for everything, then you feel you can't.
Yeah,
And that was what was so extraordinary about these women in the 1980s who stood up to that, to the patriarchy. And yeah, and your
they
novel was so
did. They
funny as
just
well. It made me laugh
good.
so many times.
Oh, good. Good. I'm so pleased because I never really advertise the fact that it's funny,
Yeah,
but I know it's funny as well. But
very
that's
funny.
just yeah. Thank
Yeah,
so glad. Um, yeah, I think often it's just because we're so used to doing it. It's just quicker if we just do it,
yeah,
and not doing it, everything just takes longer. And it's but that in a sense, we're bound. We make a bind for ourselves as
yes,
much as
you
we have
do.
been called.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and again, I always feel it's important to point out with Greenham that it was definitely predominantly white, and it was definitely for middle class white women. It was the
Mm,
very first time that there was an impingement on their right to live without threat.
yeah,
So it was the first time they went, I don't like this, and it was the first time they actually came face to face with state and government pushing back on them. They just didn't know was with them, and that was what made it so significant, I
yeah,
think, as an because the reality which black and brown women and less like wealthy backgrounds knew perfectly well. They'd already met the state face to face,
well,
but
also they
white
didn't have the
middle class,
luxury. They probably didn't have the luxury of being able to up sticks and go. They had to work and put food on the
it's like Janet.
table. And yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and interestingly, in Levittown was white only. It was for war heroes coming back, but it was not for
But
black
white
war
only,
heroes.
but white only. Do you mean it was they had that legislated, or it was just
It was in
reputation?
it's well, so I think to get you got a special rate mortgage. I can't remember the exact details, but you could get a special rate long-term mortgage to buy one of these houses, returning, and that was only available to white people. Returning military were given priority over the houses. Again, white people only. So it basically kept black people out. And it was only in I think it was the early 60s that, or perhaps it was the late 50s. I really can't remember now. It was a good 3 years ago I was researching this, but um, quite late on, a black family did buy a house secondhand, and there were all these news reels, because I watched it on YouTube, of these neighbors being interviewed and them being absolutely up in arms and saying, what if my child plays with their child, and this is just completely unacceptable. And they were up in arms about the fact this black family, and the black family, he was a got a PhD or something, and she was a doctor. They were like quite middle class, and
Yeah,
yeah, they were horrified. Um,
and
so
the parallel again, like the use of everyone and anyone in times of war, but in times of peace, we'll
yeah,
we'll put back the straits of
yeah,
society that we used
exactly.
to.
Oh, they'd let black women in to come and be maids in the houses. That was acceptable. So they would all sort of pour down the streets in the morning and then pour out again at night. Um, so the utopia was not quite the utopia for everyone.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
and actually for anyone really, because to live within that prim and proper, everything in its
yeah,
place is a for
yeah,
those accepted it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what about the research into? I don't want to give too much away, but prison, 1950s prison. Does
Yeah,
that?
so that so the
Tell us.
Yeah, sorry, I just said Ellis Island. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's quite well known. There's a lot of information about it. I mean, I did go to New York. I went to Levittown. I went to Ellis Island. I did, go, and
Uh,
it's all quite available. And yeah, I
did that
mean,
take you down? That was that another kind of like you had to be strict with yourself in terms of just the
yeah.
fascination of research?
Um, I mean, it's quite a fundamental part of the story. I don't want to give too many things away about the story, but that is quite fundamental to the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's also has a certain resonance to today with
Mm.
what happened in the story. Sorry, I don't know how to talk
Mm.
about it without giving anything away, but
Well, I don't want to give it away
yeah,
either.
yeah,
I just want to go back to nuns for a minute. Is there another
Mm.
novel in you going into the botanical and the secrets of the
Yeah,
nuns? And
possibly, yeah, yeah. Um,
is it still that need and interest? And
Yeah, I mean, it is a really fascinating area, but I don't know quite where that will take me. I have so many ideas for books and that I've done a lot of research on, and it just hasn't quite, happened yet. But maybe going forward, I've just written the next one, which I've handed in. I'm waiting for my edits, and I've got
yeah,
one more to write in my contract after this one, which I have a vague plan for. So it would have to be further in the future, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
okay, that's huge. When did you? How long have you? I know, don't tell us anything about it. But how long have you been working on the one you just handed in?
Well, it was ridiculously fast actually. So I started well, it's about a year actually. So that is fast for me. It's just about
That's
exactly
fun.
a year. Yeah. But it
Yeah.
was like and again, it was a new time period for me. Um, it's post Irish famine in the 1850s. So there's a lot of research involved in this one as well. Um, and yeah, completely different. So I'd never make my life easy by writing about the same time period and things, but otherwise I'd just get bored, I think. So,
But it's what it makes it interesting. And I was watching YouTube videos of you being interviewed for The Hidden Child, I think,
oh,
and
okay.
which I now want to read, which sounds fascinating. Was that? It sounded very disturbing, actually. Watching
Do you
those
know,
interviews,
it
like,
was, oh, yeah, that book actually is probably well, it sounds really weird because my first book was set in 1930s Germany. So that's pretty dark because it involves the Nazis. But this was my darkest book, I think, and some people have found it quite disturbing. I think because it involves a child, um,
yeah,
but it's also very close to my heart because my youngest had. So it's about the eugenics movement, but in England and America in the 1920s, and it was inspired by the fact that my daughter had a very severe form of epilepsy when she was tiny. And had she been born 100 years before, she would have been put in an epilepsy colony and left there and probably never come out. Um, and I did research in what is now it's now a school for children with severe epilepsy, but back in the day it was an epilepsy colony. And they opened their archives to me, which was very generous of them. And I also went to local to me, there's a history centre that has got all the case books from asylums and epilepsy colonies and all within the Surrey area and some from Sussex. And honestly, that was so disturbing. The way people were treated was utterly horrific. And people were put in these asylums and colonies who just for, the fact that they were poor, the fact that they had had, a bad start in life or whatever. One girl she was 18 and she'd had an illegitimate child. I have no idea. She could have been raped or whatever. And then they took the baby away at 3 months. And then the people, the wardens or whatever they were called, were sort of so nasty about her and saying she keeps crying, and we'll have to lock
Uh,
her up because she's crying. And it's like, well, you just took her baby away. It was honestly horrendous. I found it really disturbing doing that research. But I
what
felt like
era?
it had the 1920s. But
1920s.
I
Oh,
mean,
yes, yes.
this went on. This went on until all these forced sterilizations. It went on until the 50s and 60s. It was quite recent, and I think we've really buried it, and so have the Americans. I mean, the Americans
Of the
were.
Australians. Of the Australians.
Yeah, and the Australia. I mean, all over the place. The Scandinavians as well. I mean, it was happening everywhere. This whole idea of certain people being superior to other people. Yeah. So
When you say colony, what do you mean by colony? Because I always think of an island when I think of a colony, but is that just a term for a kind of gated?
so it was, high walls. You
Okay,
couldn't
okay.
ever get out, essentially. But I mean, it was like they had a farm. They had, you were intended to live there for the rest of your life, and the reason you were put there was so that you couldn't breed. So that's why you were there, because they didn't want epileptics to breed and pass it down through the genetics. And I mean, some epilepsy probably is passed down, but a lot of it just arises. Like my husband and I, where there's no history of epilepsy in our family, and our daughter had epilepsy, just arose. No one knows what caused it, even now. So, you were just condemned to live in this place, and you would be given a job, in the laundry or in the kitchens or in the on the farm. You would be, have a job, and you lived there. But to be in an epilepsy colony, you had to have a certain level of intelligence. If you didn't have that level of intelligence, your place was in the asylum,
Oh, which was one step, as it were,
which was
down.
a step down. Yeah.
Okay, and that was really just like a lock them up and throw away the key
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were tiny children to old people, and in these case books, there were their photos, and each person had a photograph, and it made them feel like sounds silly, but they were real people. And I felt like I had to read all of them because I felt like this was their one chance to be
Yeah.
remembered. It was so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Honestly, the whole thing traumatized me. It really traumatized
Yeah.
me, you know.
How, how long? How did you recover from writing that book?
Um, I I think writing the book was sort of therapeutic in itself, because I felt like I was giving a voice to these people who didn't have a voice. And I kind of need, I suppose, on a personal level, because of what happened to my daughter, I needed to write that. That book needed to be written somehow. And I think that the writing of the book helped me a lot. I still think about that. Not so much the book, but the research, and it stays with you. I think it does stay with you. Um, but then you move on and you write another book, and you can't. You have to. Yeah, you have to. But
So if I can just drill down that little bit then. So you did the idea and the research start because your daughter, does she have epilepsy, or she had
no,
epilepsy, or
she had epilepsy. So she was when she so she was uh well, she was very small. She was sort of just turned 2, really, and she started having uncontrolled seizures, which carried on until she was 3. And I mean, she was having over 100 seizures a day, every single day, and it caused catastrophic brain damage. So by the time
Oh,
she stopped having her seizures when she was 3, she was put on a medication that finally worked. Um, she was assessed to have a developmental age of 10 months.
yeah.
Having been a normal 2-year-old, she'd gone completely regressed. She'd lost all her language. She lost, she was back in nappies. She couldn't do anything. She didn't play, nothing. She was like almost like a vegetable. She just existed, really. Um, but fast forward, she's a year behind herself at school because she started school a year late. So she's 19. She's just finished school. She struggled all the way through school. She's not academic, but I mean, we were told she had profound learning difficulties and she'd never lead an independent life. Well, that was completely wrong because she did get a few GCSEs. She didn't get great grades, but she can't do maths to save her life, but who cares?
Oh,
She got her English and she's got a couple of others, so
yeah,
that's all good.
yeah.
And but she's so visual, and she was always into photography and filming. And she managed amazingly to get into the Brit School, which is a performing arts school, to do film production,
Okay.
um, for her during her for sixth form. So she's just finished there, and she's got a place at Arts University Bournemouth to do film production. Um, and she's on for a distinction. So she's amazing, and I'm super proud of her because it has been a battle. But that just goes to show they locked all these people up, and there was potential, for things to happen. So yeah, so that's her story, really. So
No, but how did she go from being a 3-year-old in a kind of catatonic state
yeah,
to a 18-year-old going to the Brit?
well,
Ho What
I mean,
was that?
I fought for
Happened things
every bit of help. I mean, it was nearly a full-time job getting her all the help that she needed. We had speech therapy, we had occupational therapy, she had one-to-one support all the way through school. Um, I mean, she got quite badly bullied at school, particularly at primary school, and actually at all the way through school, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I just always, I never, in my heart of hearts, I always knew there was intelligence in there. I just knew it. Like all the tests, I just didn't believe them. And she kind of proved it. I mean, she just started slowly, she learned to speak again. She kind of went through all the sort of stages again, obviously a lot late. And we managed to fight. We actually moved. I mean, we lived in Teddington, like I said, in near Kingston, southwest London, with all the even in the state schools where everyone was very competitive and academic, and so we moved out of London so that she could have a more gentle kind of school attitude. But yeah, it's been really hard. I mean, she went to about 6 different schools for one reason or another, but yeah, she's done all right in the end. And honestly, the if only there were more schools like the Brit School, because there are so many kids there who are sort of not neurotypical, and they can just be themselves and nobody judges them, and their creativity comes out. And she's just, she's always gone through school feeling stupid and, um, having really low self-esteem, and over the last 2 years, she's just blossomed and started believing in herself, and that is worth so much. Um, so we're very grateful to the Brit School. But anyway, we're digressing far
I
from
know, I
Bridgie.
know, I know, but so she's rebuilt her brain, hasn't she? She's
Yeah, she
rebuilt her brain.
has. Yeah. And I think brains are much more adaptable, and they can create new pathways, and they're much more plastic than people ever believed. And I mean, she'll never be a mathematician or a scientist, but you know what? Who cares? There's plenty of people who are good at that. So we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And yeah,
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of relating it back to here and to
yeah,
people the owning of reality. Like you were being fed a reality, and
Mhm.
you know about owning reality. Who owns reality, isn't it? Really, who can spread which reality,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
to contest and to say, well, I'm going to live my own reality, which in this case is to print their own books or find somebody who would print not utopia. What's Lisbeth's you like utopian world called? What does she call it?
Alias.
Alias.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
And that
yeah.
reality, and you not the reality that you were being given by
Yeah.
doctors. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a think and a
Yeah.
there, and there's a kind of ether, and
Yeah.
also the aware importance of it to spread. Well, I mean, in this book, to spread um,
Mm.
that female through the female lens version, and it
Yeah.
feels so prescient in terms of who owns reality. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know about you. I think I'm writing a different book each time, but each time I feel like I end up with the same themes coming out in a different way, but somehow it always ends up being a similar theme. I don't know if you find that as well, Eleanor.
do mine. Well, Graham Greene, I think it's Graham Greene said, "We only write one book. We write one book again and again and again and again." And my theme, and I want to know what yours is. I know mine is always. It's always about the inside not matching the outside and getting to a point where the inside does match the outside.
Mm,
That's it's all everything I've written. It's all been about that. It's been, yeah, about the inside not matching the outside.
interesting.
What's yours?
Mine
Mm.
is about, I think is that mine is always about freedom. I try not to write political books, but they all end up being political. It's about the ordinary person having freedom. Um, yeah, the ordinary being free,
Yeah, yeah.
I think. It's
And it
weird.
feels, well, it feels in what you've just shared about your daughter, so a very personal story. That feels rooted in, I know what the truth is, and everyone else is telling me this that narrative,
Yeah, yeah,
but my knowing I know what it is, and that's where my freedom lies.
yeah.
And we
That
live
comes,
that,
yeah, yeah.
and
I think,
we write about that.
yes,
It feels, you know,
yeah, yeah. I think that's true. Yeah, I mean, we can't help but be influenced by our own experiences, and that's what's great about being a human writer and not a machine writer, because we bring ourselves into our books, and that's why I've always loved reading, because it's a connection between you and the author's world, and you, as a reader, you bring your own experience to it as well. So every reader takes something slightly different from the same book as well. Um,
yeah. I've noticed for years readers will come to me and they'll pull things that I've that I didn't see at all, but they're seeing it through their lens, and that's
yeah,
what it means to them. But
yeah,
well, for my constantly writing through different books, the inside matching the outside, that for me is undoubtedly a childhood where what I could feel on the inside simply didn't reflect what
well,
was being told on the outside, and so I'm constantly trying to solve that problem.
yeah,
Every I'm trying to solve that
yeah.
through the character. And now that I know that, I've sort of given into it.
So what are you writing at the moment? Are you
Oh,
allowed to say?
no, no, just like you, I mustn't say, but it's definitely, and now I recognize the theme. That theme is
Yeah,
definitely my way into it. Yeah, I find as well, actually, Graham Greene used to say this other thing about his books. He said he wrote two kinds of novels. I think there was the kind of, Banner kind of novel, and then there was a sort of, Brighton Rock kind of novel. And they have a different, they have a different feel and tempo to them. And I find I do the same. I seem to have settled into this thing where, on the one hand, I'm writing a series of human stories set against big socio-political
Mm.
movement, like historical moments. Like obviously, Fallout is a perfect example. And then I've got one that's about to go out. I'm about to send it off to my agent, which I wrote 3 years ago actually, but I know now moment. And that's 1958 against this first C&D march to Aldermar. And then
Yeah.
there's a 60s, there's a 70s, and there's a 90s.
Yeah.
So so those are my kind of big state of the nation, socio-political, human, again with human stories,
Yeah.
that as a backdrop. And then there's the kind that are much more sort of like getting under the hood of of the human, like in Judgment of Others and
Yeah.
now they're really like getting under the hood of a human.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in that kind of, you know, just the kind of you see the Midhurst or Surbiton, just like the town in America, you know, very
Yeah.
seemingly nice, seemingly fun, lift up
And
to it.
all the things that, yeah, that go on beneath the surface. Yeah.
But they're grand, and I've now got comfortable. Okay, so I've got these kind of, as it were,
Yeah.
socio-political historical novels running on the
Yeah.
left hand side, and then I've got these kind of a bit like sort of Elizabeth Taylor, sort of Shirley Jackson, kind of like that getting under Molly Keane, those sort of. I'm really influenced by
Yeah.
1950 female writers because they were fucking acerbic.
Do you know,
You
I
know, they
think
were
it's so,
really getting.
yeah, I think it's so important that you know what you're writing. Like, that is often, I think, where we go, oh, well, I'm talking about myself, but where you can go wrong on submission because you don't know really what you're writing. And like when you see advice and it's know your readership, I'm like, I have no idea who reads my book, who reads my book. But it's more actually about what you're writing. So the
Yeah,
fact that you've worked that out is dynamite, really. Um,
makes my
yeah,
life easier because
yeah,
really right. Yeah, if people like my books, it doesn't essentially. I mean, I've read everything that Graham Greene's ever written, and I'll do that. I'll write if I love an author, read their entire canon, and I'm kind
mm,
of reading the same book over and over again, but they're just giving me slightly different details every time. So I assume if somebody loves my work, they'll,
yeah, definitely.
that's what have the same.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, your debut has stayed with me. I remember it so clearly. It's such a brilliant, incredible story, brilliantly written. And this one is really different. Um,
Really different. I couldn't.
really
That was
different,
one.
but yeah, but it's still your voice, it's still you, and I think that's, even if you write something different, it's still your voice, and that's the kind of important thing. If someone likes your voice, they're gonna read whatever you write, um,
Yeah,
I
I
think.
can feel a difference if I think about my debut and actually the one that we're just about to send off. I know they've got I can feel the difference. There's a depth to them that they're denser somehow.
Mm,
Whereas the sort of these other ones in Judgment of Others, and to an extent Fallout as well, they they sort of they're a bit faster. They
mhm,
slightly they skim. I wouldn't
yeah.
say they skim along the surface. They've got a they've got a revolution to them that's just faster. Whereas I know my debut was like it was dense,
It was
and the
slow,
one that I'm about to
yeah,
send off
it's
is
slow.
dense.
I know what you mean, and it was definitely slower paced. And
Yeah.
I know what you mean about denser, but this is all but it's all here, it's just under the surface sort of thing.
Just under the
And it just means
yeah.
that when you've finished it, it just goes around and round in your head for which I love because then you keep thinking about it afterwards, which is good. Yeah.
What are you reading right now? You reading anything fantastic?
I am reading, a proof, um which is a crime novel actually, of a friend
Mm.
called Trevor Wood, which is really good. And next up, I'm reading, another proof of Joanna Glenn's new one. Is
Mm.
called something in summer. I've loved all her books. They're sort of quite, they're very human relationship based. but I'm actually interviewing her in the summer about this book, so I do need to read
Mm.
it. But
Where
yeah,
where are you interviewing her? Live? I mean, in
yeah,
IRL or on
in a bookshop. It's in a bookshop in Ashted in Surrey.
No.
I don't. Are you're London based, aren't you?
I'm both actually. I'm in Surrey and in London.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. So Ashted, it's called Word on the Street is the bookshop.
Heard of Word
Um,
on the Street.
yeah. So
We're at time, amazingly. 7 o'clock. It's
wow,
just like
that
that.
flew by.
Right. Is there anything you'd like where people can find you, find your books, anything you're appearing at? Is there anything, do you want to advertise yourself?
Okay. So you can find me. I've got a website, www.louisefein.com, which I need to update with my events because I have got some coming up.
Right.
Um, and I am also on Instagram where I tend to put all my things, just at Louise Fein Author. I am. My kids always take the piss out of me and call me Louise Fein Author. Um, and I also I've got some festivals coming up in the summer, which I will put on my Instagram and I will also put on my website because I will update it. And
And
I am sorry.
in, will you put it on notes in Substack as well?
Uh,
Can you do that?
okay, I'm confessing, I
Yeah.
loiter on Substack. I've never done
Yeah.
anything. I don't know how to use it.
If you want
Hence
me to give
my
you a little quick masterclass, just let me know.
okay, I will. I will endeavor to start using Substack. I just haven't spent any time, but I will do that. I will, yeah, I will put everything up and I can quite easily be found loitering
Yeah.
about. Yes.
Loitering. Okay, good. Notes is quite good, even if you're not posting on Substack. And obviously you're here, you've got an account, but you're not posting anything. But Notes is a bit like Twitter. Notes is it's like
Oh,
Twitter, TikTok, all in one.
okay. Okay.
So I
Right.
like
Okay.
that because you have followers on Notes and you have subscribers on
Oh,
articles.
okay. I do need a tutorial, but
I'll
yeah.
give you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. It's been so nice to chat to you, Eleanor. And I can't actually see if anyone's watching, but if they are,
Yes,
thanks
there
for
are.
watching.
Lots of people. Pagan, Chet, Steve, Dick, Pat, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Louise Fein, find her on Instagram, find her in bookshops. Here it is again, Book of Forbidden Words. It's brilliant. Order her online. Go into your local bookshop and order it. That's the best thing you can do.
Thank
And
you.
Louise, I'll see you soon, I hope. And lots of
Yeah,
love. And thanks.
and to
All
you.
right.
Take care. Bye. Bye.